Hey, we're coming from the book of Daniel today, the third chapter. So go ahead and turn there. We're going to start at the very first verse. Daniel chapter 3, verse number 1. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, this pumpkin here, because we're in that season where it's fall, harvest time, Halloween time, as many of you are familiar with. And so I'm going to just touch on that briefly a little bit later. But right now, I need you to turn with me to Daniel, the book of Daniel, chapter 3. We're going to start at the very first verse. Daniel chapter 3, verse number 1. And I'm going to read from the Amplified Bible today. It says, Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold. He made this huge figure, whatever it was, it didn't really say. At one time I used to think it was a figure of him, but the commentary said it wasn't him, it was some other figure. He set it up on this tall mountain in Babylon. It says, then Nebuchadnezzar the king, he sent to gather all the royal officials. He had them to come in town so they can witness this extravaganza. And when they got there, it said that he wanted to dedicate this image. And he wanted the people to bow down and set it up. And so verse 3 says, so the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, all these royal people, they assembled for the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. And they stood before it. Then the herald loudly proclaimed, somebody came out shouting, saying, announcing this thing. And they were like saying, nations and people of every language, this is what you're commanded to do. As soon as you hear all kind of music, you must fall down and worship the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into a burning furnace. Well, there it is. Many of you have heard this story before. It deals with three Hebrew boys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Yes. And I like the story because it's so powerful. I'm not going to read everything, but I'm just going to tell you right now because I want you to, read on your own. Because you're going to see it's a very interesting story in the Bible. Well, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were three Hebrew boys who were in captivity in Babylon. They were wise individuals. They fasted, they prayed. They did not get caught up in the wicked schemes of the Babylonians. The Babylonians were heathens. And I'm sure many of you have heard that word before. Maybe someone have called you at one time a heathen. Well, the Babylonians were not godly people. They worshiped many gods. And so looking at this pumpkin right here, there are people who have worshiped things made with, their hands, and they've decorated things and they worship them. Well, in this case right here, the 90-foot tall, 9 feet wide statue that was put before these people, the people were expected to worship this thing. You got to ask yourself this question. What are they going to gain from worshiping a statue? I mean, that's a good question, right? And we can rightly ask ourselves the same thing. We worship things ourselves, right? We worship houses that we buy. We worship cars that we purchase. We worship our jobs. And the bottom line is, they're just things, and they cannot benefit us in no kind of way. You say, well, that's not true, Pastor. My job can bless me with money. But yes, can it bless you with good health? Can it bless you, right, to raise your kids right? You say, well, if I have the money, yes, it can. That's not true. And we're going to talk about that today, too. So what I want you to focus on right now is this. That last verse, verse 6. It said, anyone who did not fall down and worship that statue, they were going to be immediately thrown into a burning furnace. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they weren't having it. I'm going to go ahead and go down to verse number 7. I'm sorry, verse number 8. At this time, some astrologers came forward and denounced the Jews. There were some people who came and they said, hey, king, there go some guys, some Jews who don't want to worship the statue, right? You always got them yes men, right, somewhere around there. And they trying to get them in trouble. And so they tell the king they won't worship or bow down. The king said, okay, bring them here. King told them, okay, fellas, you got a choice here. Okay, it wasn't much of an option, but he said, you got a choice. Either you bow down when you hear this music and you worship that image, or we're going to throw you in that hot furnace. Needless to say, those 3 Hebrew boys did not bow down. They would rather be thrown into the fire than worship some false image. That's powerful. I'm going to go ahead and just throw out my sermon topic right now. It's a question, really. And that is, how strong is your faith under pressure? How strong is your faith under pressure? Notice I didn't just leave it at how strong is your faith, right? Because if I had left it there, then everybody who I asked that question to would probably say, it's pretty strong. I have good faith. See, you're saying that right now because you're in an ideal situation. Right now, there's no pressure going on. You're probably living a pretty good life. You've been on your job for a while. Everything's going good. But there's no pressure. And so you can say, yeah, my faith is pretty strong. You're saying that because your faith has not been challenged. See? It's only when your faith is challenged do you realize then how strong your faith is. Nebuchadnezzar, when he told them 3 Hebrew boys, I'm going to throw you in that furnace, their faith was challenged. If you're on a job and they're threatening to let you go, your faith is going to be challenged. I want to ask you this question again. It's rhetorical right now, but I want to ask you this question. How strong is your faith under pressure? Because that's what really matters. What are you going to do when everything starts coming against you? And if truth be told, if we're honest with ourselves, many of us can't handle pressure that well. Well, I'm telling you right now, you better start thinking about that thing. Because at some point in time, pressure is going to come against you. And you're going to have some decisions to make. You're going to have make some choices, some good choices. Well, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were threatened with death. But one thing they said in verse number 15, it says, now when you hear the sound of the horn and all that music coming at you, if you're ready to fall down and worship the image, I made very good. This is what Nebuchadnezzar was telling them. But if you do not worship it, you will be thrown immediately into a burning furnace. Then what God would be able to rescue you from my hand? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the burning furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it. And he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. Notice what comes next. He says, or they say, but even if he does not, amen. Even if God does not deliver us, we want you to know, King Nebuchadnezzar, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you've set up. Amen. That's powerful. Yes. Those people did not care about dying. And see, I'm saying to you today, as a Christian, we cannot be afraid to die for something that we believe in, which is God. We can't be afraid. You can't. Don't be afraid of losing your job. I mean, look, today they've taken God out of just about everything in our society. You know, they want to take it off the money that we have in God we trust. They want to take God off that. They've already taken it out of the courtrooms. You used to have the 10 Commandments in there. They've already taken out of the schools. They don't even want you to pray anymore. They call it silent time, a moment of silence. Well, I actually pray, and I pray aloud. As Christians, we cannot fear what man can do to us because God is stronger than any man on this earth. Amen. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego said it. They said, so what, King? If you want to kill us, then hey, do what you got to do, but we're not going to bow down and worship nothing that's false. And that's powerful. Again, I ask you the question, how strong is your faith under pressure? Now you're thinking about it a little bit more, aren't you? Yeah. See, right now, we're in the month of October. We're close to this time where people go trick-or-treating. Yeah. Halloween, as it's called. We don't believe in it. We don't. Because it's not biblical. But there are a lot of people that have fun with this thing. They say, oh, I'm just doing it for the candy. So, look, they dress up in all these scary... Look, hey, I'm going to be real. We've been there. My family and I have been there. We've done that before. Yes. But when you know better, you got to do better. Amen. All right. And so this is what we're doing. We're trying to educate you right now. People are running around, and they will be very soon, running around with scary costumes on and all of that stuff. And they're going to be having their bags, buckets, collecting candy and all kind of things. But that's not real. What they celebrate is not real. It's not real, and there's nothing to be afraid of with that. It's just something made up. But what I want to tell you about today is real. I want to tell you about something that's going to take place probably in your lifetime. And it's as scary as this thing called Halloween, but it's real. It's called tribulation, the end times. Amen. All right. I'm leading you somewhere. I'm showing you that. I'm asking you a question about how strong is your faith under pressure. Because, see, right now you really have no pressure as it comes to your faith. Not in North America anyway. I mean, nobody's going to, threaten to kill you for worshiping God. Not in North America. They could threaten you on your job if you're talking about Jesus, they can say, well, we're going to write you up and possibly terminate you. But it's not to the point of death. But there is going to come a time when it is going to become to a point of death. And I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just telling you the facts. Turn with me for a moment, please, to the book of Revelation. And I got to tell you that most people don't want to go to the book of Revelation. People are afraid. They don't even want to read what it says in Revelation. You know why? Because they're afraid of what's going to come, what's going to happen. If you believe in the Bible, you got to believe the Bible in its totality. All of it. And in chapter 13 in the book of Revelation, it talks about, in so many words, about the lack of faith that people have. Did you hear me? The lack of faith. Do you know that in the Bible it says that in the last days that many people are going to fall away from the faith? See, now your faith is going to be challenged. Because you have opposition coming against you. See, nobody wants to die. Nobody wants to go through, hard times, and that's a fact. But let me tell you something. Trials and tribulations, tough times, that's a blessing in disguise. Because it's only going to make you wiser. It's only going to make you better. It's only going to strengthen your faith. That's what it's going to do. Why do you think people who exercise work out a lot and lift a lot of weights? They're trying to build themselves up, right? They're trying to get some muscles so they can lift heavier weights, right? Because if they didn't do that, then there's no way they can pick up those heavy weights. Your faith and my faith cannot get stronger unless we have opposition against us. Don't fear opposition. That's what I want to tell you today. The Bible said God has not given us a spirit of fear. He didn't give us that spirit. You say, I'm afraid of this, I'm afraid of that. God didn't give it to you. He said, I gave you the spirit of power, love, and a sound mind. If you have fear in your heart, it's not from God. It's got to be from the enemy, Satan himself. When you have fear, fear is going to prevent you from doing the very things necessary to move forward in life. Okay, chapter 13. Let me just read a little bit here. It talks about the beast to come. Don't get afraid. Don't be afraid right now. Don't be scared. Don't be scared. It's okay. It hadn't happened yet, but it's going to happen. We may be alive, we may not be alive, okay? Verse 1, and I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his head the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. That's a beast. Looking like a leopard, feet like a bear, mouth like a lion. I don't care who you are, I'm running. That's a monster. And they ain't even talk about how tall that is. But that's not the scary part. Listen on and see what happens next. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat in great authority. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death. And his deadly wound was healed. and all the world wondered after the beast. And they worshiped the dragon, which gave the beast power. They worshiped the beast. There's going to come a time when we're going to be, when I say we, I'm talking about the people on this earth, are going to be threatened with death. We're going to be told to worship something that's not godly. Now, somebody say, oh, well, I'm not going to worship it. But let me just inject a little something here. What about if they threaten your family? It's one thing to threaten your life. How about if they threaten your kid's life? How about if they threaten to kill your baby and cut his head off? How about they say you're not going to eat any food if you don't worship the beast? And you know, in America, we love to eat. We eat constantly. Well, it's going to come a time in the Bible that we're not going to be given any food or able to buy food because we have to worship the beast. It goes on and says this right here, that we're going to be labeled with the number of the beast. Verse number 16. It also forced all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands or on their foreheads. That number is 6. 6. 6. We're going to be forced to get a mark on our bodies, on our hand or our forehead. The number of the beast, the number of Satan. And if we don't do that, then they're going to prevent us from buying any food to eat or any water, have any water to drink. That's scary. Now, again, back to the original question. How strong is your faith under pressure? See, now I done added some dimensions to the question. When you're faced with opposition, how strong do you think you're going to be? Right now, again, you have no opposition. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they had immediate opposition. And what happened next with them was this. The king was so upset with them telling him that they're not going to worship anything that he puts up. The king said to his guards, get me the strongest, biggest guards you have. Tie them up and go take them and throw them in the furnace. Not only did he say that, he also had the furnace heated up 7 times as high. They throwing tree limbs up in there. He want to make sure they get burnt up for not worshiping the image. Now look, we all get afraid at some point in time, especially when we know that there's imminent danger at hand, right? You're looking at the furnace right now. It's right there in front of you, only several feet away from you. And you about to be thrown in. That heart is about to start pounding a little bit faster. But it didn't matter to the Hebrew boys. They went toward that furnace. They were taken toward that furnace. I don't know if they were dragging their feet, being pulled, or that they walked with the guards. I don't know. But all I know is this. As the guards got closer to that furnace, they threw them in. And as they threw them in, the guards themselves burned up. They were incinerated themselves. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were in that furnace. The fire was real. It was so real, it killed the guards that didn't even go inside. The king looked in that furnace and he saw something. There were 3 that were thrown in there. The king said, I see 4. 4 men in that furnace. He was puzzled. I'm trying to help somebody here. I'm trying to show you that no matter what you're going through, God is able to bring you through. There's no need to fear anyone or anything. God still works miracles today. He does. What kind of faith, or how strong is your faith under pressure? I mean, really, think about it for a second. And we've all gone through things. The last time you went through some trouble, how was your faith? Did you pass the test or what? Or did you get afraid? Did you panic? Did you start calling everybody for help? Did you start doing things that you used to do that you had stopped doing before? Just to try to make ends meet. Did you get mad at God because things just weren't working out? Or did you trust God? The Hebrew boys trusted God. They walked out of that furnace on their own. The king told them to come here. Notice he didn't go there. He told them to come here. The king wanted food. They came out. They didn't have a scorch on their clothes or their bodies. No smoke was upon them. No smell of smoke or fire. This is what the Bible says. Read it for yourself. Daniel chapter 3. God is able. God is able to do exceedingly, abundantly, above all that we can ask or imagine, according to the faith that worketh in us. How strong is your faith under pressure? See, there's going to come a time, and I mean, it may come tomorrow, it may even come today, where some pressure is going to be put on you. What are you going to do? See, I've already warned you it's going to come. The Bible's already warned you it's going to come. Jesus said in John 16:33, in this world there will be trouble. But he said this also, but know this, I've overcome the world. What he's saying is, whatever you and I are going through, turn it over to him. That's it. It's not that difficult. Stop walking away from the church because, you know, things not going well in your life and you get mad at God. No, God didn't do anything. You did it. You didn't trust God. You got in that trouble. You got in them situations. How strong is your faith under pressure? That's the real question you got to ask yourself. And don't play games when you ask yourself that. Be honest with yourself. Will you trust God in the midst of your troubles? Or will you cave in and give up and lose out on all your blessings? That's something you got to think about. How strong is your faith under pressure? Amen.